Welcome to the Bloody Channel, you lot. Today we're not messing about with some amateur cooking show. We're diving straight into the heart of the kitchen, into a matter of life or bloody death. You think you know food? Think you can stomach anything? Well, think again, because we're about to expose 10 foods that are an absolute disgrace to any plate, to any chef, to any human being. Listen up, you donkey. These aren't your average culinary mishaps. We're talking about ingredients so risky, so downright dangerous, they make a raw chicken look like a Michelin star dish. Get ready to bin your shopping list and rewrite your food rules, because after this, you'll never look at these 10 foods the same way again. You might even think twice before taking a bite. Raw milk, eh? Sounds all natural and wholesome, doesn't it? Well, let me tell you, it's about as wholesome as a sewer rat. This isn't some fancy cheese, you muppet. Unpasteurized milk is a breeding ground for bacteria. Campylobacter, E. coli, Salmonella, you name it, it's probably having a rave in there. You think you're being healthy, but one sip of this stuff and you'll be spending more time on the toilet than in the kitchen. We're talking explosive diarrhea, vomiting. It's the culinary equivalent of a punch in the gut. Stick to the pasteurized stuff, you hear me? Fugu, the infamous puffer fish. You know that deadly delicacy that only specially trained chefs are supposed to prepare? Yeah, this isn't your average fish and chips, mate. One wrong slice and you're pushing up daisies. This little blighter contains tetrodotoxin, a neurotoxin so lethal it makes cyanide look like a sugar cube. One tiny mistake in preparation and it's curtains for you. You'll be paralyzed, struggling to breathe, and there's not a bloody thing anyone can do about it. You're better off sticking to cod, you hear? Sprouts! They look so innocent, so healthy, like little green shoots of goodness. Well, don't let their size fool you. These things are like tiny sponges for bacteria. Think about it, they grow in warm, humid conditions, perfect for Salmonella, E. coli, and Listeria to have a field day. One bite of these bad boys and you'll be spending the next week glued to the toilet. Cook them thoroughly, you hear? Otherwise, you're playing Russian roulette with your gut. Chapter 4, Undercooked Eggs. Sunny side up? More like Salmonella surprise. Listen, I love a good Eggs Benedict as much as the next guy. But when it comes to eggs, it's gotta be cooked properly. You want your yolks runny? Fine. But that white better be set solid, you hear me? Raw or undercooked eggs are a breeding ground for Salmonella. And let me tell you, you do not want to mess with Salmonella. We're talking fever, stomach cramps, diarrhea, it's a one-way ticket to misery. So cook your eggs thoroughly, or risk facing my wrath, and a week on the loo. Chapter 5, Raw Oysters, Shells of Surprise, and Potential Sickness. Oysters, the supposed aphrodisiac of the sea. Listen, I've got nothing against a bit of romance, but when it comes to these slimy suckers, you're playing a dangerous game. Raw oysters, especially in warmer months, are like swimming pools for Vibrio bacteria. We're talking about a nasty case of vibriosis, with symptoms that'll make you wish you never laid eyes on an oyster. Think vomiting, diarrhea, cramps. Not exactly the recipe for a romantic evening, is it? Chapter 6, Cassava. This root can root you to the spot permanently. Cassava, a staple food in many parts of the world. Sounds innocent enough, right? Wrong! This root vegetable contains a nasty little surprise. Cyanide. Don't worry, you won't keel over from one bite. But eat it raw or improperly prepared and you're in for a world of hurt. We're talking cyanide poisoning, which can lead to paralysis, organ damage, even death. So, unless you're a culinary expert, steer clear of this one. The ackee fruit, the national fruit of Jamaica no less. But don't let that fool you. This exotic beauty has a dark side. Eat it unripe, and you're in for a world of pain. We're talking about hypoglycin A, a toxin that can cause Jamaican vomiting sickness. And trust me, it's as bad as it sounds. Vomiting, seizures, coma, it's a culinary nightmare. Make sure it's ripe and prepared properly or you'll be begging for mercy. Chapter 8. Raw cookie dough. It's tempting, I know. That sweet, buttery smell is enough to drive anyone mad. But resist the urge, you hear me? That raw dough is a recipe for disaster. We're talking raw eggs, which we've already established are a Salmonella minefield, but it gets worse. Raw flour can harbor E. coli, another unwelcome guest in your gut. So bake those cookies thoroughly before you even think about sneaking a taste. Chapter 9. Elderberries. Those little dark berries that people rave about for their health benefits. Well, let me tell you, they're not so beneficial when eaten raw. In fact, they're downright dangerous. Raw elderberries contain cyanogenic glycosides, which your body converts into, you guessed it, cyanide. We're talking nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Not exactly a recipe for good health. Cook them thoroughly to neutralize the toxins or risk a very unpleasant experience. Chapter 10. Wild mushrooms, the forager's delight. But for every delicious chanterelle, there's a deadly death cap lurking in the undergrowth. And trust me, you don't want to mix those up. Some wild mushrooms are so toxic, one bite can send you to the pearly gates. We're talking liver failure, kidney failure, the whole 9 yards. So unless you're an expert mycologist, stick to the supermarket varieties. Your life might depend on it. Well, there you have it, you lot. 10 foods that are best left off your plate. I hope this culinary crash course has taught you a thing or two about food safety. Remember, just because something looks edible, doesn't mean it's safe to eat. Always cook your food thoroughly, be wary of raw ingredients, and when in doubt, throw it out. There's no shame in being cautious when it comes to your health. Now if you'll excuse me, I've got a perfectly cooked steak waiting for me. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more kitchen wisdom and culinary carnage.